All right, thank
Mayor Foley? Vice Mayor Carroll? Councilmember Atwater?
Here.
Councilmember Smith?
Here.
Let the record show we have a quorum.
All right. To reorder the agenda, delete any items or add any.
Aye.
Okay.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you very much. Item number 3. Excuse me, item number 4. Are there any comments from the public regarding the agenda items?
So moved. Or second.
Okay, motion from the Vice Mayor and a second from Councilmember Atwater. We have an approval of a planning and zoning recommendation, so I think that does call for a roll call vote.
In an abundance of caution, welcome to. The charter says simply ordinances and resolutions, but it probably would be a good idea.
All right, there's no judicial matter in this, but out of abundance of caution, we'll have a roll call vote.
Mayor Foley?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Carroll?
Aye.
Councilmember Atwater?
Aye.
Councilmember Smith?
Aye.
Let the record show the motion passes unanimously.
All right, the mayor's report. Wait for the Florida Power Light Phones to leave. Okay. We're going to talk about it behind your back. Okay, let's talk about the rates now. Under the mayor's report, essentially I have something that you've probably seen members of council about the Florida Transportation Plan Regional Workshop has been canceled as a
Right.
result of the impending tropical disturbance that is expected to turn into Hurricane Helene. And so those are pretty worthwhile to either attend or follow what they've done, just to see what makes this for transportation plans for Florida. Speaking of Hurricane Helene, happy to report that the town is in great shape. Should there be a
Well done.
All right, Councilmember Elwood.
Okay, so actually my wife and I attended the Florida Shore and Beach Preservation Association 2024 annual meeting. And essentially there were 4 tracks of seminars that ran concurrently, so it made it pretty difficult to see them all. So originally I was just going to go by myself. I said to Nancy, why don't you come along and hit some of the ones that I can't do. So just everybody for the record, there was a guest registration fee of $175. I'm eating that. Nobody should think the town is paying for that. So there were 4 tracks. It was about beach nourishment. There was a track on smart planning. There was a track on resilience. And then there was a track on energy. So I covered all the beach stuff, and Nancy took a combination of some of the smart planning and some of the other things. So at this, slides were not available at the time. What I did was I positioned myself up front and took pictures of slides. I took 97 pictures. I won't kill you with 97 screenshots, but I'll just run through quickly through the highlights. The first thing up on the screen here, and you have a packet in front of you with the slides if you don't want to look at them up there, is the state is committed to a lot of spending on resilience, and you can see the numbers up there totaling $1.8 billion to date, and you can see the breakdown that's going on there. So they're committed to dealing with these storms. So if you flip to the next one, just wanted to show you what their standard procedure is for doing hurricane assessments. So it's a series of items. DEP comes out, does structural damage assessments, sand assessments. They do a lot of aerial videography now, which is pretty important in terms of assessing damage. And then what they will do, if you flip to the next slide there, is they will come up with a hurricane recovery plan in conjunction with the county or the municipality. So what the pictures you see there is of Sanibel, and I'll talk a little bit about what happened in Sanibel, potentially some lessons for us if, God forbid, we're in some sort of a storm. Flipping to the next slide, as we all know here in the town, we've been fighting forever to get our Sector 4, which is of the 8 sectors along the beaches in Indian River County. Sector 4 is completely inside of Indian River Shores and constitutes most of the beach in Indian River Shores. It's one of the few sectors which is not, as we all know, not critically eroded. So they had a slide up here, and I thought what was interesting is if you look at the second bullet point up there, it says can include peripheral segments or gaps between critically eroded area whose inclusion is necessary for continuity management / design integrity. If that doesn't fit a definition of Sector 4, I don't know what the heck does. So flipping to the next slide, you can see that over time, the critically eroded sectors, the red line on the top, as designated by the state, have gone up very dramatically from 1990, around 225 miles of beach to approaching 450, and conversely, things have gone down. So to me, that's just more frustration, which I know is shared by council, and I know the town manager with some outside help has been trying to get this corrected, and I'm a little bit lost why this continues to be the situation, but just shows you how we're kind of being left in the dust compared to the other designations that are occurring throughout the state. Next page is the FEMA beach programs. Category G is an engineered beach. In any case, FEMA will only give you money if it's not a United States Army Corps of Engineer project, a USAEC. So we got money through the state as a result of the Cat B emergency berm sand, where it was sand after the declared event. Now, there was interesting discussion about easements, and I think we all know that's been a problem with some people in this county not giving easements, and unfortunately we had about, I think it was 3 or 4 homeowners in our town in Sector 4 didn't do it. I saw pictures later on, and to be blunt, you got to be utterly stupid not to give an easement, because the way they protect, even in a major storm, having that berm there reduces the amount of damage. And there were pictures from Sanibel Island where the water went in and came back out, and if there was a berm there, that helped limit the damage to some degree. So I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. Councilman Smith is familiar with sand replenishment, which goes on in South Jersey and Stone Harbor, Avalon, and so forth. And I've seen it where sand is pumped off from offshore onto the beach. Well, I learned something about sand coming off the offshore. It's a lot more complicated down here than it is up in Jersey. So the Army Corps of Engineers had a whole series of slides. I only showed you a little bit. So basically, what happens is that they have to, anybody that's offshore has to do screening. And the screening is much more intense because there's something called MEC, which stands for Munitions and Explosives of Concern. So as I think everybody knows from history here, during World War II, there was a lot of training that went down here, Vero Beach, Fort Pierce, the ancestors of the Navy SEALs, the UDT teams practice here, and I know that our public safety department on occasion has come across a munition in our town. I think all of them have been inert, but maybe Mark Shaw would know better than me if we had any which were actually explosives or not. But you have to go through an extreme screening process with special equipment. And if you look on the next page, there is some of the problems you deal with. If you have a basket, you can have situations where the screen material comes in, blows the door off the screen, destroys it in some other ways. Now, Palm Beach County currently uses borrowed, sand-borrowed areas offshore. They're running out of capacity. Their screening cost runs $1 million a year on top of the sand. I mean, they're a big county and everything, but it's a lot of things that you have to do. So, it's just something that I learned. And if you look here on the next slide, thank you, where it says discharge screening, you can see the elaborate things you have to go through. You get shells that come out, not military shells, but other shells. You have to determine what to do with them. There's all sorts of rules involving moving that material around and so forth. So it's quite complicated. The next slides were, I know this is controversial for some people in terms of rising temperatures, is it man-made related or so forth, but I took a picture of a couple of these slides here, and what it shows is Mauna Loa, which is, I think most people know, is the volcano in the Big Island of Hawaii. It actually snows up there. It's so high. In fact, it's actually the tallest mountain on the planet if you measure it from its base underwater. So the air is pretty clear up there, and you can see the carbon dioxide concentration has gone up quite dramatically. It started to go up when you had the Industrial Revolution starting in England with with coal plants and so forth. But then looking at ice core data before 1958, you can see the movements up there. And as a result, global average temperatures on the next slide are going up. In 2023, according to these measurements, was the warmest year on record, as it says there, by a long shot, and currently 2024 is outpacing. Now, everybody can have their opinion on it, but the experts, including from the state, are looking at their resiliency efforts take into account sea level rise. And in most cases, sea level rise is the water gets warmer, it expands slightly. So there are a series of different websites and tools that we'll have to get more information on. There's one coming in November from NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Association. They're going to have a sea level rise calculator that, my understanding can be localized to look at for seasonal changes. So I think that's something that we should investigate. And one of the towns has, and I didn't attend this meeting, Nancy did, you can actually build a city simulator. It may be too much for us, but essentially what you do is you create a digital twin of your town or municipality, and you can run through some algorithms and put changes in sea level and so forth, and see potentially what impacts are going to take place there. So several of these towns have had seminars for people, and they're getting a lot of resistance back on these efforts to spend taxpayer money trying to mitigate some of these impacts. So what they're trying to push is the monetary benefits to these in terms of potentially lower insurance, you're preserving your property, and so forth. I don't think we're there yet right now. We don't get much pushback in terms of our taxes and spending, but it's something that I think we should just keep an eye out. I'm going to try to do some more work on that. In terms of, okay, so here, you flip to the next screen, the other way, yeah. Sea surface temperatures are going up. This is in the what they call the tropical Atlantic. You can see they're moving higher, so again, that raises the volume of the water. There's another picture on the next screen here, just about temperature rankings. I think we're all feeling that, so I won't go through detail here. But the last one was pretty interesting, calculating annual taxes generated by beach tourists relative to spending on beach nourishment. And I saw some analysis. I'm a little skeptical of them saying a 5-to-1 return on it, but there's clearly a good return. Now, what's interesting is that some counties, I think Lee County is one of them, actually use tourist tax dollars for beach replenishment. To my understanding was we don't do that here in this county, that we just spend it on advertising and things like that. So maybe down the line, that's something we can push. Let me go through a couple other things quickly here. Yeah, Lee County, 24.6% of their tourist tax money is used for beach replenishment. One thing that came up is in a discussion about preparing for potential storm is what materials does one put aside for a natural disaster? Do we need to have pre-positioned? Maybe that's something, Jim, that in a future meeting might just give us a quick update on. I know you made efforts on contractors and things of that nature. But we had a discussion. Excuse me 1 second here. we had a discussion about reserves, and some people, out in the public brought up about maybe our reserves are too high. Well, Sanibel Island, they have a $100 million general fund budget. They spent $85 million on debris removal. So, and they have 12 miles of beach. We have 6, I believe. So, think about that a little bit. And, the point made, cash flow is critically important. And there is a special program called FROC, and I'm having a brainstorm now, I'm trying to remember what it is, but basically what you do is you put in an application, you fill out some e-learning classes, and put in some information, and you can recover money from the state in advance once it's obligated by FEMA. So I came back pretty excited about that, about us doing it, and found out that the town manager was way ahead of me, that he'd already got that done. And I think we can recover, up to 85%? Yeah, which is the highest you can get, which is not surprising given, the work we've done plus the creditworthiness of our town. The advantage of that is that we don't have to go out and borrow from a bank. You get the cash flow in advance, or it reduces the amount. So thank you, Jim, for getting that done. Yeah. Okay. I saw that someplace where the max was 85%. I think Sanibel had 60%. So the last thing I want to cover is on a handout that's in front of you here. And during the meeting, Florida DEP released, it was actually in August, their annual inlet report. So if you go to the third page here, so each inlet has to put a report together here, which shows their an improvement plan. Let me take a step back. When you have an inlet, particularly if it's a man-made one, it traps sand. In our case here, sand goes from north to south. Sebastian Inlet traps it so it doesn't come down to us. So they're required under state statute to bypass the sand. And there's an annual requirement here. Now, as you can, and so if you flip, so it shows here that the Sebastian Inlet only bypassed 58% of their objective. And most telling, in my mind, is if you look at the graph down at the bottom over time, most of that sand was bypassed years ago. And we need every cubic inch of sand that we can get here, particularly given that we're not considered critically eroded. So what I did was, if you go to the front page, I put each of these inlet districts was listed. I typed them in by hand into a spreadsheet. There wasn't a table there. On the left-hand side, it's broken down by geographical area, starting from northeast Florida and heading south, eventually going around to the Gulf Coast, and then back up to the Panhandle. You can see Sebastian Inlet south there. Port Canaveral's above. Fort Pierce is lower, and so forth. Then what I did was I sorted them by the bypass percentage of objective met, and many of these are over 100%. And Sebastian Inlet is bringing up the rear down there in the red, as you can see, at 58%. The graph on the next page is a representation, again, which shows that they're bringing up the rear. So it was interesting. I went to the Beach and Shores meeting with this data, and James Gray, who is the director of the Sebastian Inlet District, he was also at the same conference I was. So I think after he saw that there, he felt like he had to respond. And I'll just say I'm not the president of the James Gray fan club, because when I first came here in 2014, went to a Beach and Shores meeting. He went through all the sectors, what was going on. He skipped Sector 4 the first time around. Okay. Go to the second meeting, he skipped Sector 4. I raised my hand. I said, why aren't you talking about Sector 4? Well, it's not critically eroded, so we don't talk about it. So I said, so in other words, we don't exist. And that's the way he kind of operated. He was dragged kicking and screaming in terms of doing any sort of report to get us to be critically eroded. So what he handed out on this last page was this, he modified this graph here, put those red arrows, and said there was additional sand put in 2004 and 2007. And he didn't include the page, but he said if you added the extra sand that was put in during those time periods, it took that percentage from 58.9 up to 93%. So, and he said, I was the coastal engineer with Indian River County, and I partnered with Sebastian Inlet. We spent taxpayer money to put sand in sectors 1 and 2 when it was Sebastian Inlet District's responsibility. So, of course, my hand jumped up right away, and I said, I don't understand. Why would you spend our taxpayer money when Sebastian Inlet responsible? And he says, well, yeah, I can understand the way you look at it that way. I was sort of astonished by that. So I think the important point at this point is they are doing a project, and District 1 and 2, I think either in the fall or in early 2025, they're going to put 75,000 cubic yards. I'm going to watch that district like a hawk, because they had an annual objective to get there. I want that sand eventually come down here. Now, he claims that sand trap will be emptied as a result of this bypass that's done. We'll have to wait and see on it. But if their annual objective is 75,000, what's happening to all the other sand then? Because the plan that was put together in 2023 was their plan. It wasn't imposed upon them. So that doesn't make any sense. So I just wanted to bring you up to bring
So,
you
Bob, a comment on that? Remember the meeting where they had that gentleman make the presentation on the inlet?
Yeah.
So whatever happened with that?
Well, I
He was there. I mean,
Yeah,
all of this
I
was
think-
discussed.
Yeah, it was discussed, and then I wasn't at that meeting, unfortunately. So, I was loaded for bear in this last meeting that happened to bring this up. So,
Okay.
they know they're under
Yeah, they knew
scrutiny.
they were under the gun then. So I just wondered if anything has improved since then.
Well, they actually have a number they're going to put down, 75,000 cubic yards. So that's supposedly a real number that they're going to do, and they're getting a
So
contract.
it's a little more on the radar now.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, I had brought it up in the past. They have a new chairman of the Sebastian Inlet District. Maybe he's not chairman, maybe he's the board. He used to be on Beach and Shores, so I think he's tuned into it. So which is good news. So this was really worthwhile going on. I'm glad I went to this rather than Florida League of Cities meeting. I have more things I could talk about, but the point being, it's when we get all the slides, figure out other ones that maybe council should see. We'll just email them to you. And we'll have another presentation.
That would be great. I've not been to the resiliency meeting, but having been to the League of Cities meeting, I'm glad you went to this meeting as well. So it sounds like it was much more productive, and you got much more information that's germane to a problem that we have. You're right. Everybody's going to have their own opinions on, the data and how it's compiled. But the one thing we can address are the things that are immediately affecting our community. And I remember at a regional planning council, one of the suggestions was made to do periodic reviews of building codes and road setbacks and things of that nature, because it seems that the pace is accelerating,
Right.
as there's water intrusion. So You know, I'm sure many of us will be long gone from this dais at the point in time when we need to worry about whether or not town hall is going to be oceanfront property, but there are things we can do to mitigate it. So, you know, my takeaway from it is that stripping away all the macro issues that people love to talk about and debate, we have clear issues, you know, that we have to pursue. Stick with getting Sector 4 critically eroded designation, make sure we get all the sand that we're supposed to get, keep an eye on Sebastian District, and, you know, make sure that we are prepared in the event that a catastrophe occurs. You know, the FEMA thing is what I found most interesting, Councilman, because, you know, on the one hand, they talk about, you know, don't worry about the 8 most terrifying words, I'm from the government, I'm here to help, because, you know, FEMA is here to help. But then you hear stories about, you know, clawbacks and the delay in the money being paid. And, you know, if you have a look at it from the percentages of Sanibel Island or even Mexico Beach, if you were to extrapolate to our town budget, we'd be spending $4 million in cleanup and restoration out of a little bit over $6 million budget. So that's an awful lot of money, even for us to go out and try to float temporarily. So thank you, Jim, for, you know, staying on top of it and finding creative ways to prevent the problem before it happens. So
You mentioned roads, and I'm sorry, I found this astonishing. There was a big FDOT presentation on roads, and they talk about what they found is when there's issues with flooding, it's often the approach to the bridge, not the bridge itself. But they said something that I never thought about, and that is if you have, it doesn't necessarily have to be coastal flooding, but flooding where water sits on a road for a long period of time, that can potentially damage the road. They said what they try to do is ideally, you don't want to have people drive on the road until the base dries out below. Now, that's pretty difficult to do when people are clamoring to get back in their houses and everything else. They said if you let the road base dry out, you use pretty wood. But if you're letting cars and trucks run down there, you're going to have a lot of damage. I never thought about that. Yeah, so just one last thing. So thank you.
well, thank you. Anything else? Anybody from the public have any questions about this? Okay. The next item on the agenda is the town council meeting dates and holiday schedule. We have our unopposed council member-elect, Mr. Dane, here, so you can pay attention to this one because some of the dates are going to affect you after November. So we have proposed dates that were given to council. Now, in fairness, we try to stay as close to these dates as we possibly can so people can plan and schedule accordingly. That being said, I think council has always shown some flexibility if later on in the year there appears to be a conflict with either other meetings or you know, something that comes up in either staff's life or council person's life. So the proposed dates are here. The May date we have as pending. The September date we have as pending. And so let's start with, let's see, do all the dates other than the yellow pending dates work for everyone on council?
Yes.
Okay.
As far as I know.
So the May pending date, remind me, Mr. Harpering, what was the question on that?
Mr. Mayor, I just noted it for scheduling purposes only because Memorial Day is the 26th,
Okay.
Which is Monday. The council meeting is currently scheduled for Thursday, May 22nd. Staff is fine as it stands right now. We just wanted to bring it to council's attention in the event that council wanted to move it back either to the week of May 5th or May 12th. And of course, it's currently scheduled, or would otherwise be currently scheduled for the week of May 19th, which would be Thursday the 22nd.
I plan on being here, but for council members that don't, I'll offer it up to discussion. It may be their preference to move it earlier in the month to the 5th or 12th if you're planning on going anywhere for Memorial Day weekend. Is there a preference?
Oh, good.
I have noted in my calendar that the meeting would be on May 22nd. I'll be here then. I prefer to keep it that day.
Okay.
However, if members of council would like to make it earlier, I could do it on either the 20th or 21st. But I'll be away the first 2.5 weeks.
The,
of May.
the 22nd is fine for me. Is it fine for you,
I'm
Bob?
fine with the 22nd.
Yeah, I at this point, it's fine.
Okay, fine. We don't need to, you're going to be here anyway. I know you live full-time, so, all right. So we'll set the May 22nd will be the May date.
Okay.
The September date, I think the idea was to do what we're doing today, which is to have the budget meeting and the council meeting immediately before it on the Tuesday. What does this make this? We have to do it, is this the last Tuesday? The second to last Tuesday of September?
We'd be looking at the 23rd, Mr. Mayor, I believe,
Okay.
which is a Tuesday.
Right, and we set it for 3:30 just in case we run over, because we have to start at 5:01 by statute for the budget meeting. We never get there, but if we made the meeting 4 o'clock, you know what would happen, we'd probably run over. So I'm okay with September 23, 3:30 main meeting, and then the 5:01 budget meeting.
Yep.
Is that okay?
I'm good.
I'm good with that.
All right, is there a motion to approve the calendar as amended?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We don't need a roll call vote on this. This is just not a resolution. Okay. We've got the calendar set. Item 8B, which is ordinance number 575. We have an amendment to Article 6, the Code of Ordinances of the Planning and Zoning Board. Mr. Sweeney can take this, but I trust council has been made aware of what this change is. It's due to either a non-issue or an omission or an assumption that was made, when composing the Planning and Zoning Committee years ago. So, Mr. Sweeney?
This is ordinance number 575, an ordinance of the town of Indian Shores, Florida, amending and repealing the Code of Ordinances of the town of Indian Shores as follows. Article 4, planning, zoning, and variance, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, providing for scrivener's errors, and providing for an effective date.
Is there any discussion on ordinance number 575 as proposed? Is there any comment from the public? Anyone from planning and zoning here wishes to comment? No? All right. If that's the case, then is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mayor Foley?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Carroll?
Aye.
Councilmember Atwater?
Aye.
Councilmember Smith?
Aye.
Let the record show the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. Item 9A, building official report and statistics. Mr. Held is, I believe, doing building stuff, right?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to note that pretty much everyone in the building department, as well as in our public works department over the last 10 days or so was pretty ill and home, which led them to sort of be backed up in a lot. So we're trying to, basically they're trying to catch up on inspections yesterday and today, but we had a bug run through the town, as it were.
Yeah, there is a bug running through the town, and hopefully those of us who have had it didn't pass it on to others, and those of us that haven't had it won't get it. So understood completely. Item 9B, Town Treasurer. Heather Christmas.
You've received my financial report. The only thing to note outside of that is the auditors will be here on Tuesday next week to begin the 2024 fiscal year audit. So they start on October 1. So I'm available for any questions if anyone has any.
Are there any questions for Heather?
I just have a question on the ambulance,
Yes.
the revenues. So
Yes.
did we know, and we kept thinking that they would get their act together, and they never did?
I basically said, we're not going to do it,
No.
because it wouldn't take long, because most of it's Medicare, so that's why I'm like, we're going to get it, no. And so I'm like, I'm done. And that's why I'm reporting it, and I'm letting everyone know now, because up to now, we thought we were going to get the money. So, but
Okay, so will we get the money?
we will get the money. I've just talked to Tad. We are getting a new billing company. So we're going through the processes right now. We hope to have that in October for you, and as long as we get everything, they can back bill it. We have up to a year from the incidents to get the money, and it's with Medicare, so we should get all the money back in the next fiscal year.
Thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
No, I've been hearing that for a long time, chasing those people is, but I heard Tad said he'd make up the difference, though.
I was going to say, I remember hearing these things too, and then somewhere on the agenda, a write-off always appears. All right, well, we could do what they did in the old days, which is like, give you a percentage of the collectible, right? All right, item 9C, Public Safety Department report and review of statistics. Chief Stone.
Good afternoon. You have the data that we provided to you, and that has actually come down just a little bit in a couple of areas. So we're fairly happy with that. I do have just a couple of items to bring up quickly. The construction is proceeding at great speed over there on the remodel of the building. We have moved everybody that lives upstairs in the living area upstairs for the crews that are on duty. We've moved it all the way to the other end of the building, so they completely tore out the one section where the living areas are. They've been working on the garage out back. They have just been all over the place. They replaced the flat roof in the back this week, so these guys are just working like crazy and getting a lot of work done. So we're very happy with the progress that they're making, and we've got a great rapport with the contractor, and we've been able to get a lot of stuff done and get a lot of stuff moved out of their way so they can work. Follow up on an item from last meeting, and that was the traffic issue on A1A in front of JI. We have met once again with JI, and I think we've come to some equilibrium in discussing with their security. They will be starting to hand out pamphlets in the next couple of weeks for the contractors as they're coming in, and tell them that we are going to start enforcing the lanes on A1A. That includes the turn lanes, the center lane, the center median lane, and then both turn lanes going on either side. And we're going to give them fair notice. We'll give them 2 weeks notice on when we're going to start. So in mid-October, we're going to give them another 2 weeks. We're going to issue warnings to them, and then after the 2 weeks, we're going to start issuing citations for blocking the right-of-way. So we have made some progress in that area, and we're very happy to announce that. And once again, thank you to JI for meeting us in trying to solve this issue, especially before the contractor busy season starts back up. And we did also learn that there is no moratorium on construction in JI anymore. There used to be. It used to shut down on November 1st, but there's not anymore. They can continue to build pretty much the entire time from what the security chief told us.
So, Tad, one question, then where are all those cars going to go?
Well, we're giving them a couple of options. Mark is working with the village shops to try to get them to see if we can stage them in there until they offload. Or we're just going to tell them, don't even show up. Don't even come in here. Don't stage up. The gates open at 7:30. That's when you can make. If you start blocking the road or blocking the accesses, we're going to ticket you. Okay, so they can block those areas in at 7:30. Like the middle lane and the side lane. Well, those then become turn. Those then become turn lanes. Now, what we have seen. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, you just can't sit there and park and wait for the gate to open. What we have seen is that the JI is very good about getting the contractors through the gate once the gate's open. They're really good about that. It's the stacking problem that we have prior to the 7:30 time frame. So, okay, and Commissioner Atwater, I actually have an answer for the tourism funding and beach renourishment. I can give it to you here. I can give it to you offline, whichever you prefer. Okay, well, having my child bride, my better half, she actually did this for a living here and was just responsible for it. So there's a 4% tourism tax that's currently in place. Currently, 2.5% goes to beach renourishment, and the remainder of that money goes to the agencies that they fund, a bunch of different agencies, and Another part of it goes to fund the operations of Jackie Robinson. Now, I believe that they're moving up to 5%, and when they go to 5%, that will increase to 2.75% of the funds generated or collected through tourist tax, which will go toward beach reimbursement. So, yeah. Okay. Yes. No, not a correction. It's a great information. No, okay. I'd be happy to answer any. Yeah. Yes, sir. Okay. Thank you. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Please.
Correct. So the first step in the process is getting the speed limit lowered to 35. That gives us more points in their matrix that they use. We've gotten approval to lower it from 45 to 35 from Fred Turk south. So that'll be the first step. And other than that, I'm staying in contact with FDOT, and I know, but we're getting there. I mean, we're making progress.
I know you've been at it. It just seems silly to take this long, really.
We have an MPO tech meeting Friday. I'll bring it up again at the
Great.
MPO tech meeting, but I know it's
Well,
slow, but we are making progress.
Okay, all right. Thank you for the update.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, Chief Stone. This JI traffic situation, it seemed like something that, was crying out for a simple solution that was going to benefit both parties, and it sounds like it has. It sounds like it's better for everyone, so great, thank you. A little cooperation from both sides goes a long way. All right, terrific. So let's look at...
Can I make one comment on
Yes,
that?
sure.
Is anyone going to let the gentleman know that was here that brought it to our attention the last meeting? I forget his name.
Oh, Mr. White.
Yeah, we should let him know that
If,
there's
yeah,
a resolution.
absolutely. If he doesn't know already,
okay.
Jerry's pretty good about asking some of us at least the status of things, so
Yeah, we have an open line to
I
him.
haven't talked to him if you want to
We'll make sure he knows.
Okay, good.
Okay.
All
If
right,
I don't
thank you.
see him before I call him.
All right, good idea, Councilmember Smith. All right, Public Works Department.
Mr. Mayor, that was the same with Public Works and Code Enforcement.
Understood? I'm just doing it for the agenda. Code Enforcement, nothing other than the report. We'll just put that in.
Yes, sir.
Town Clerk? Anything from the Town Clerk?
Good afternoon. The only update I have is on the upcoming election. The absentee ballots will start to be mailed on September 26th, and you can track them on the website as to see where they are and if they've been mailed to you and if they're en route. And then early voting will open on October 21st.
Okay.
And it'll be at the main elections office, the City of Sebastian, and the main library.
Excellent. So, I know we do this as a matter of course, but we'll put that out in the email blast as people come back. It's one of their more consistent questions. And, you were here last year, so you saw we get people wandering in from Vero Beach thinking that they can vote in the town of Indian River Shores. So, that's something we have to be prepared for it as well. So thank you so much. All right, next up, Town Attorney Report. Mr. Sweeney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Very briefly, I had the opportunity to meet with the new county attorney yesterday. A week ago. Her name is Jennifer Schuler. It was a pleasant meeting, and I'm looking forward to working with her. Obviously, there are a lot of issues that we continue with, talking about beach and shores and other things. So again, a pleasant meeting, and looking forward to working with her. Relatedly, bigger picture Florida legislative session will be starting. Just wanted to give some dates because it's been in the news about a possible special session related to some of the issues for the condo assessment and rehabilitation that was passed a couple years ago. So just again, the actual session will start March 4th, 2025. Will run until approximately May 3rd, a 60-day session. The committee meetings will start December 2nd, and they'll be the first 2 weeks of December. They then take a break until the second week, January 13th, and we'll have committee meetings through January 13th until February 21st. But for a special session, as of sitting here now, one has not been called, and it can be initiated one of essentially three ways. The first is by proclamation of the governor. The second is a joint resolution by the House Speaker and the Senate President, and the third is by a 20% percentage of the overall legislative body. So far, I haven't seen it.
I've gotten one inquiry about this from, I think there are a couple of condominiums that are affected by this because either, their reserves were not where they should have been, and they're getting some shock on this, so only one inquiry. But my understanding is that the Senate President, Senator Passidomo, ruled out calling a special session, so option one is out the window. That's not going to happen unless she reverses course, and if you follow what Senator Passidomo does, she rarely reverses course. The governor could call it, but then he asked, I think, for there to be a legislative consensus on this, and it seems he's backed off calling a special session himself. Otherwise, he likely would have done it, I think, at last week's press conference. So we may be, this is going to be in the press more. So we may be getting inquiries, and it's an incredibly unsatisfying answer for residents, but we have nothing to do with this. We didn't start this problem. So unfortunately, if there's something they've got to compile and they've got to file, and there's a deadline, that's a state statute, we can't extend it. So we just have to be clear on that. And my guess is a special session is not in the offing.
That's the main reason why I wanted all of you to be aware. If anybody community-wise reaches out to you, again, everything you just said, Mayor, is exactly right. I understand that a sort of consortium of several HOAs up and down the Treasure Coast was just incorporated, including one of our condominium associations here.
Yep.
I believe it has 12 members, at least as reported. So they're effectively sort of a pack, if you will. And I wouldn't be surprised if you have some contact communication. But again, there isn't a special session right now on this issue, and would be a limited special session. If it was called, they couldn't get into other issues, again, unless it was a separate resolution. So I think everything you said is right, but I wanted you to be aware. As far as I know, that's the status of it.
Okay, all right. Well, anything can change, but thank you for bringing us up to date on that.
What's the pushback? Is it these folks is it about insurance cost or about the response to structural engineering assessments, or both?
Both, and that's why a special session would be a challenge to cover the whole problem, because a special session would have to be called to cover only the SERS issue, because it's a separate and distinct issue than the rising cost of homeowners insurance. The SERS program, Structural Integrity Reserve Study,
Right.
We did a little bit of a briefing on that when the legislation was passed, requires condominium associations, depending where you are, every 20 or 30 years to conduct a study to make sure that you're not going to have a surf's edge disaster like they did down there. In keeping with legislative philosophy, when a legislature creates a horse, you wind up with a camel with two humps, right? So they threw onto that requirements that independent engineers do a structural integrity study,
Right.
and then to set timeframes for the reserves to be funded so that homeowners associations can't just ignore the problem. They have to go ahead and do it. I think it was 20 years ago or so when there used to be a legislative mandate for reserves to be at a much higher level for a condo association, and then somehow, somewhere along the way, it was removed, saying they're all big people and they'll take care of their own homes. Well, there have been aberrations where homeowners associations have decided not to spend the money to fully fund reserves. So I think it's probably those isolated incidents. I don't think we're going to have too many condo associations in Indian River Shores that are going to be in extremis when it comes to funding reserves and things like that, because the structural integrity reserve study is probably going to be pretty clean. But that's not to say that there aren't examples up and down the Treasure Coast where people are in trouble. I think it was in Fort Pierce, they removed the entirety of the population from the condominium building. So this could be a problem. We'll see if they provide some solutions for it, but no special session is my bet. And I don't think you're gonna bet me a beer on that one.
I will not bet you that,
Okay.
and it's all coming to a head by the end of this year. That's the reason.
Yeah, right, it's gotta be called before. Thank you.
That's my report. If there's any other questions, I'm happy to answer.
All right, town manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. Just want to follow up on a discussion we had a while back regarding annexation and the Island Club. Preliminarily, I will note I reached out to the Island Club HOA personnel and president. I have not heard back from them at this point in time. We've done some internal evaluations on a couple of different areas to include public safety, the building department, and I want to thank our town clerk, Janice, who did a lot of work on a lot of different areas in looking at this to include whether we would need another polling location. Currently, the Island Club's on Indian River County water, and we've looked a little bit at some of the tax base information. I want to thank Heather for that, at least relative to the gain to the town versus the loss to the county. So at this point in time, that's where we are. Spoken with our town attorney under the provisions of we've evaluated the provisions of Chapter 171, which is the annexation statutes. So at this point in time, I guess I would ask council for some direction. I've yet to hear back from the Island Club. I'm happy to follow up again more assertively and in different ways. But again, we have an idea of what we would need to do from a procedural standpoint. The question is that I always proffer is this was something that was brought up by a town resident. We hadn't had any contact from Island Club. At the most recent was, I believe, 2012, but it was actually really 2002 when any substantive discussion happened. So I'm happy to proceed however council wants at this point in time.
Well, I for one, sorry, I'm going to jump in and I'm going to throw it back at you and say, I know you haven't done a detailed analysis, but do you think it warrants any further investigation at this point? Is there such a, I don't know, more than a plurality of benefit to the town to do this, to explore it, or is it, 50-50?
My opinion, just based on the economics and what we might have in discussing this and going over it with Heather, there's not a great a gain to the town, economically when all is said and done. If that would be the final goal. Similarly, there would be a loss to the county, and relationships associated with that may have to be considered. But for our part, if I was to take the next step, I would want to actually secure assistance from either an engineering firm or a firm like that to actually conduct a detailed feasibility study with some of the background data that we've already gathered. I will just say this, from the management perspective, it's not something that leaped out to us in the town or to me as the town manager as something that was so overtly beneficial or needed or required for some reason or another that we should actively pursue it. And I say that, of course, in the umbrella of the fact that this is not something that the Island Club has been searching for or seeking for some period of time.
So, I mean, that kind of tells me what I need to know. Again, I'm only one vote, but we reached out. The way this came to us was not through kind of an official committee for annexation or anything like that. It was an individual that, kind of floated the idea, right?
Yes.
So, unless we hear anything back from your initial inquiry, I'm in favor of just letting it lie and not spending more staff time on it.
I agree. When I hear you say about spending engineering money, I see the numbers going up like that, and we spend enough money on engineers. So, yeah. So,
All right, understood.
Yeah, because if, you contacted them and then they've not gotten back to you. That's pretty simple.
And if they do, I'll report back to council, of course. Thank you for that direction, Council. Secondly, regarding the septic to sewer and our paving project, we had a very successful open house. We had about, I would say, 20 residents between Beachcomber and Pebble Lane here, as well as a couple of different contractors present for the presentation, as it were myself, our town attorney Pete Sweeney, Rob Bolton from the city was here. He gave a separate presentation with the PowerPoint that I forwarded to everyone along with the towns, but it was very successful, very positive feedback. Haven't received any pushback. In fact, to the contrary, we have a few emails and calls from people, and as well as the folks here that are actually really looking forward to it and very appreciative of the council of moving the paving project up so it could be done concurrent with the septic to sewer piece. I wasn't looking at IDs, but my understanding was there were a few people from the city as well that were here to observe. Councilmember Carroll observed the presentation. I will just note that we are trying to lean forward on this, and I think a lot of people are looking at the relationships and the associations and how we're going to do it. And no more questions on that. I'll just give a brief update. I had sent out earlier today to council the information from the BOCC on the Sector 4, the dune renourishment. We have the 3 access points, one in Johns Island, one from a separate lot, and one here in Beachcomber. All that's approved. Really now it's just a matter of waiting for the clock to tick, so to speak, on November 1st. Yes, Councilmember Smith.
And Jim, I was reading this on the plane, so I wasn't sure when Tad was speaking, but on the second page under funding, it says right here, local funding for beach restoration is provided by a portion of the tourist tax. So it's written in their recommendation that they took to the people today.
Yes, they're pulling some from that as well.
Okay.
Just one point on that. At the meeting over at Bonita Springs that I discussed with you, Sanibel Island used Dickerson, the same one that is being used Sector 4, and the gentleman, the town, I believe it was the town manager of Sanibel Island, said Dickerson did a great job. So it's good to hear.
Always good to hear. So if one thing I would like to note, I want to thank our Public Works Director, Larry Bryant. We're doing documentation, photos. I know, and this will sort of segue into something else, which is, I know we have some inclement weather over in the Gulf, on the West Coast. We're monitoring it closely. To date, Indian River County is not included in any of the executive orders with a declaration of emergency. So we continue to look, watch, monitor, and be aware. But if anything did occur, certainly Public Safety, Public Works, Building Department, we're all prepared to pivot quickly. But again, we're having all those photos taken. If there's nothing else on that, I spoke with Councilmember Atwater earlier, and Councilmember would like to just do a brief update on the CRS. We have our cycle visit October 31st with the I'll just say it this way, the vendor that FEMA uses. We talked about the reason for some of the delay before. I've had a Zoom meeting with him and our CRS coordinator. It was very, very productive. There is just a flurry of activity going on with him reviewing documents that we've already provided, us getting him additional documents. I want to thank our staff. Again, I want to thank Janice and our building department staff and really all staff with public safety who are pulling items together for this. Very brief update. Currently, we are a Class 6 in the CRS classifications. We have 2,190 points. The Class 6 equates to a 20% discount on your flood insurance. We are aiming for, in our conversation, my meeting with Mr. Arkins, the ISO for this project, overviewing it, he's He's very clear on our desire to get to a Class 5, which is 2,500 points. I'll just note briefly that just because we've received points for something in the past, to get 2190 doesn't necessarily mean that they automatically just rubber stamp that. We still have, compliance items and things like that. But I'm guardedly optimistic that we're gonna get there to the 2,500 points, and that would then equate to a 25% discount in flood insurance for our town residents to get to Class 5, which would be a very nice achievement for a jurisdiction our size. Any questions on that? Finally, I'd just like to bring up, as it were, per my contract, there'll be a review in October of me by the council. I'll be reaching out and setting individual meetings with anyone that wants to have them between now and then, and I'll be sending an email to just provide you with a little outline, sort of state of the town and achievement update, as it were.
Sure. Just to take the pain off you right now, because it's always hard talking about yourself. Council will recall that we kind of revamped the review process. It was kind of like a middle management thing where you filled out a ranking sheet, and I think there was a fairly strong consensus back then that it really didn't give an accurate appraisal of how someone's done. So the appraisal process, I think, is best if it's council's so inclined to have an individual meeting with Mr. Harper and give him your feedback, and then we will do it in public so we can all share our comments together at the October meeting. As for compensation, like in the old days where numbers were tossed around and it was awkward, cumbersome, we've just built it into the regular employee package, is my recollection, right? So we don't have, at least not this cycle, you get your set percentage along with the slated increase with the other employees.
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right, thanks so much.
That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
All right, terrific. Council committee reports. Before we get to the reports, will be just a reminder to council that in November we will be signing up for our electives, as I like to say. So we'll be picking our committees going forward, and I would encourage all council members, if you could kindly pass the message along, Mr. Harpering to Mr. Altieri, that in November we will be giving up which committees each of the council members will be on the intergovernmental relations side of things to oversight. I think some of us prefer the continuity of being on some. Some of us may be very happy to give up some committees. So we'll figure this process out, and we'll hash it out in November at our organizational meeting. Janice, if you could kindly just send out in advance, separately a list so it doesn't get lost in the package. I've talked to our new council member, elect without opposition, Judge Dane, and he's going to get a list of things and talk to folks here, staff-wise, about, and you can talk to anybody on council, what is this committee like and what does it mean, when do they meet? But it's an important part of what we do. So, we'll have a look at those in November and either stay on some or switch some out. So, on to the next item. Is there any, this is not a busy season for these intergovernmental committees. Do you have anything to report? Okay.
Just talking about the package that I mentioned before from Beach and Shores that was going to the Board of County Commissioners today. We know that it was like pulling teeth to get to where we were with Sector 4. It's been since last November, but if you read through the report, there was really a lot of work that went behind it. It looks like it's a go. And as I said to Jim, I don't know who Mr. Tully is. Do you know Mr. Tully, the gentleman that's going to allow the people to go through his property to do the beach replenishment? Yeah, I'm going to reach out to him when I'm back here and just thank him for letting all of that mess go through his property in Johns Island. So that's all I have. Thanks.
All right. I had Treasure Coast Council of Local Governments, the September meeting. I'll leave the packet for everyone to the extent they want to review it. The presentation dealt with the new compliance requirement for local governments. Sleeping outdoors, no longer legal in Florida. So this has required municipalities to, either on a county or a city basis, come up with shelters for homeless folks to live in. So I don't think it's a huge problem for us in the town of Indian River Shores, but we may see some required law enforcement activity to ensure that statute's being complied with. On a county basis, they'll have to provide, the shelters for people to go. I believe it's the county, St. Lucie County actually purchased an old hotel to convert it into a shelter for people to comply with this law. Like most statutes that, are a good idea, and I think this is a good idea personally, the details are really challenging. So if you arrest someone because they're violating the statute, you either put them in a jail cell or you've got to have a shelter for them. And I had no idea how much jail cells actually cost to put people in. So it's more economic for larger municipalities and counties to, buy these facilities and have them, housing these folks. So interesting topic. I'll leave the packet. There is a Treasure Coast Council of Local Governments meeting in October. I will not be able to attend. I'll pass it on to the alternate, whoever it is, and I will say I looked at the agenda. This is not one that I think is of critical attendance, so I'll leave it at that. But if anybody wants to go on my stead, you're more than welcome.
Nothing to
report.
Utilities Commission. We haven't had a meeting for quite some time. There is a meeting scheduled for October 1st where we're going to finally get an update on the reclamation plan. So we'll see what's going on there. It's my understanding that they're going to get a guaranteed maximum price sometime in October. Thanks to our town attorney, I was able to have a visit with the new Fort Pierce plant that's being built out by I-95, and they put a hard hat on me, took a tour of the thing with the on-site construction manager and the director of water utilities. Was very interesting. I was trying to, look, I'm not an engineer. My father was an engineer. None of those skills trained. But just trying to get some sense of what issues they had. They said they really don't have issues with skilled labor, which I was a little surprised about. That's dealing with. And it was interesting that the other thing that they doing is they put in additional pipe capacity, stubbed it out below ground, did all that in case they had to expand the plant, which I thought was smart. You only have to dig once. So it was about an hour. I learned enough about some of the things they're dealing with that might help when the discussion occurs down the line. So hopefully we'll hear something from the city, because city of Vero Beach, because it's been dead silence on this thing. So
I'm not sure no news is good news, but it benefits us if the project does go better than we're anticipating. So
yeah, the guarantee maximum price, I think, for Fort Pierce was about $136 million. Now that doesn't include they're running all their wastewater from along the lagoon way out. So it's going to spend a lot of money there, and they're going to demo the plant as well. So that's going to be additional cost. I'm going to try to pin down Rob Bolton on that. It's like trying to get a ball of Jell-O and nail to a wall, trying to get information from him. But we'll see what happens.
This isn't a quiz, but you remember what the original projected cost was?
Well, it was.
Not for Vero Beach, for Fort Pierce.
No, I wasn't told that information.